It could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Tune in every Saturday at 6 p.m. to Recovery Talk 101 with your host, Rick Ford, talking about addiction, treatment, and recovery. Right here on Word Radio.
My mom is stronger than anyone I've ever known. Growing up when life got hard, her strength helped pull us through. Even after her heart failure diagnosis, she remains stronger than ever.
My family's support keeps me strong. Together, we're rising above heart failure.
Heart failure doesn't have to steal your strength. For simple steps you can take to help prevent, improve, or manage heart failure, go to riseabovehf.org.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply STOP to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
We are progressive and proud and interactive. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at onWURD. This is Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Streaming live at wordradio.com. The views and opinions expressed by the guests, listeners, and hosts of any program on Word Radio do not necessarily reflect those of ownership, management, or advertisers of this station.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله.
Get free. It's easy to say, but it's harder to do. Gotta talk a line, go hard for the truth. My brothers are scared to death and go hard for the youth. But the youth is going hard for the convertible coupe. I say, I'm trying to go hard to converse with the crew. Converse my crew with the words from the code. Say, it's cool, make it do what it do. But don't be in love with a system that's murdering you.
The world is testing me, but you said keep on shining. And though I feel what some could do to me, if I can help hope, what's the use of being?
They are.
Can you see where I'm coming from? You could know. Can you see where I'm coming from? You could know. I was for things that may not come on this road. I was for things that may not.
Assalamu alaikum. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Welcome to Islam Today. Today is Saturday, September the 21st, 2019 on the Gregorian calendar or the Christian calendar. It is also the 22nd of Muharram, 1441 on the Hijri, the Muslim calendar. It is sunny and 86 degrees outside. I don't know if that's regular or if that is indicative of global warming, but it is a beautiful, gorgeous day today. I am your host, Qasim Rashad, and we began by seeking refuge with Almighty God, Allah, from the rejected, the accursed enemy, Shaitan, and then we said all praise belongs to Allah. We praise Him, we seek His help, and we seek His refuge. We all went on to say that whomever we seek refuge with Almighty God from the evil, the things that emanate from within our very own souls, and whomever Allah guides, no man can mislead, and whomever Allah permits to go astray, no man can guide. And then we went on and closed with the Kalima Shahadatain, which is the two-part statement or testimony that every Muslim makes, and that is I bear witness and give open testimony that there's nothing, no deity, no God worthy of worship except Almighty God Allah. He is alone with our associate partner, and Muhammad ibn Abdullah, unto whom the Quran was revealed over 1400 years ago, and what is now recognized and known as the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, is his slave, servant, and final messenger, Ahmad Bat, so on and so forth, etc. Alhamdulillah. Welcome to Islam Today. We have a very good show for you today. As we all know, the hours between 5 and 6, WRD is known as Black Muslim Talk Media, and we have one of our very own today, and as the song was saying by Amir Suleiman, if you could see what I see, you would know where I'm coming from. And here's a brother that has a way of making it so plain and so clear. I'm talking about our brother Sharif El-Mekki, who is a product of an elementary freedom school and also attended middle school in Iran and went on to graduate from Overbrook High School in Philadelphia, and is also a graduate of the Indiana University of Pennsylvania with a degree in criminal justice. As a principal of Mastery Shoemaker Charter School, Sharif was recognized by President Obama and Oprah Winfrey for having created a school that partners with communities to turn around failing schools in distressed communities. Sharif stepped down recently as the groundbreaking principal of the Mastery Shoemaker Charter School in May of this year. Sharif has now moved on to form and head his own nonprofit group called the Center for Black Educator Development. Under the umbrella of the Fellowship Black Male Educators for Social Justice, a group El-Mekki also helped to create in 2014. CBED expands on its efforts to recruit and maintain black male and female educators both locally and nationally. And with that, welcome to our brother Sharif El-Mekki. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran, akhi.
Alhamdulillah.
Iran, like I think people might not even know what you're talking about.
I should have said Iran, Iraq.
Yeah, you say it so well. Man, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. I'm not like Gil Scott-Heron.
No, how's everything, brother?
It is good. How's everything with you? I mean, you know.
Alhamdulillah, man. It's been busy, but good. You know, sometimes you're like real busy, but it's like what? You know, Allah's blessings, real positive things, and momentum, and inshallah, some future success. We got to pave the road first.
Alhamdulillah. Well, welcome back to Islam Today radio show. So tell our audience something. We know how highly dedicated you are to the black educational experience, but how has Islam also been a pivotal aspect to your approach?
Yeah, I mean, you know. Well, I think a couple things. One, when you are Muslim, that is your identity. It's part of your identity, right? And so, you know, how my North Star when people are talking about, how does their morality affect their work, how do they interact with other human beings and the law's creation, and then practical things like, I got a meeting. Where am I going to make salat in this joint?
Right.
It's like the spiritual and the practical. I've never approached education devoid of the spirituality aspect of serving humanity, which we believe is serving the law's creation. And so that's inseparable. But, I think that a lot of people, when you look at like a lot of these leadership books now, they're talking about like just what people's North Star are, what's the spirituality that they bring to their leadership. And then you see other folks who don't care about any of that. You can look at a lot of political leaders, so to speak, who they don't care about any of that kind of stuff.
Atheism is the order of the day for them.
Well, no, they'll claim Christianity, but you can't see it in their actions.
Ah, okay.
Right? And so there's a saying that people should know about your religion without you uttering a word.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I approached it, inshallah.
Mm-hmm.
Just being a good human being, and we're blessed if you're serving other people, then some of the stuff should become easy for you to be a good person because you're doing good work.
Right.
But then, inshallah, if your intention is right, may Allah make it easy for us. And I do believe that I'm in a lot of people's du'as. Imam Ali said the best place to be is in people's hearts and people's prayers.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, inshallah, I'm in both.
Well, it's kind of manifesting a little bit in this new chapter in your life. Tell us a little bit about the new venture and how you stepped out and, kind of giving up all your creature comforts of a regular 9 to 5. You no longer are with Mastery School.
First of all, we don't. Anybody who works in a school and has worked at salt, weighing salt, there's no such thing as a 9 to 5 when you're working in the school. Bro.
It's 9 to 9 and so on, huh?
First of all, if you're there at 9, you're like 2 hours behind the kids, right? It's more like 7 to 7.
Wow.
8, something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a different rhythm. I'm excited about this opportunity. So, and also heartbroken. I'll be honest with you. It was really hard to leave Shoemaker. I've been there for 11 years. And so to not be there as the principal was really hard. It's really hard. My 26 years inside of school, I've only been in 3. So, I try to become part of a community and be really grounded in the work there. But what helped me was the excitement that I had for the Center for Black Educator Development, where we're really working on is policy, what policies support or potentially undermine black educators. People, laud the Brown versus Board of Education, but what they don't realize is, they laud the ruling of Brown versus Board of Education. They say, oh, wow, look, integration was segregation was made illegal and all this kind of stuff. But what they don't realize is thousands upon thousands of black teachers were fired because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So we always have to look at the policies to see what else is underneath it. And so part of our work at the center is around policy. The other one is around professional development, which I'll talk about in a little bit.
Okay.
Where we believe that teachers can be developed and coached, and that there's an art and science to teaching. It's not just, I love kids, so now I'm a great teacher. That's not how it plays. You might love kids, and you might need to be a librarian, or you might need to be a baseball coach. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you understand the complexities and able to execute on the complexities of teaching. And then the pipeline, which this past summer we launched some more Freedom School sites. Basically, college students and high school students teaching first, second, and third graders, including my daughter, Zainab, who was also part of my brother Akil's class. Moose's nephew, matter of fact, was one of our Freedom School teachers. And we use dual enrollment as well. So we're partnering with Arcadia University right now, as well as Temple, hopefully in the future, to where high school students take dual enrollment credit classes that are, education-based. And so our goal is by the time a high school kid graduates high school, he has 18 college credits under his belt, his or her belt. So in a snapshot, that's the work we've been doing. We're a 5-member team, and just really been really excited about the what we've been able to accomplish so far.
Okay, so you've mentioned the Freedom School system, and you're a product of the Freedom School system. For those, I mean, if you may edify the listening audience, what is the Freedom School system, and what's the history surrounding it?
Yeah, so Freedom School, and people, you know, like there's a formal and an informal version of Freedom School. So the informal version was every single time an enslaved ancestor was teaching someone how to read or the alphabet. They were using a Bible passage and learning how to connect the words to meaning, right? And so that was Freedom School, whether they were doing it in the woods or in someone's attic or in their cabins, right? Like that was part of it, because liberation is tied to the education that you receive, right? And Frederick Douglass says that education makes someone unfit to be enslaved. And so we had that kind of upbringing as one. And then there was also in 1964 in Mississippi, there was a Freedom School movement that was really couched around like, hey, you know what, these schools are not educating these black children in Mississippi. It was part of the Freedom Summer. So they said, not only are we going to come down here and help people get registered to vote, we're also going to work on helping the children become more literate, make sure that they have a positive racial identity. Because we know then, as we know now, that black children are not safe. When I say not safe, I don't just mean physically. I mean culturally, spiritually, intellectually, emotionally. They're always brutalized in this society. And so they need tools. They need shields against that. And Freedom School kind of brings both of those pieces together.
So it has a history intertwined with civil rights and social justice?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The history, our students have to be able to connect the dots, and they have to understand the political context that they're growing up in. Because we always say, oh, education is this. Every school's mission says something about, kids changing the world or interacting in the global community. Well, if you don't understand the political dynamics of how you're growing up, where you're growing up, how are you going to change the world? It doesn't make sense unless you add the politics and social justice issues and racial justice issues into the context in which you're teaching.
So your approach is just not reading, writing, and arithmetic.
No. It's heavy bent on literacy, phonics specifically, a project that students can work on, some kind of social action project, and then this positive racial identity piece. But it's intergenerational. So college students are learning how to teach. High school students are learning how to teach. College students are mentoring high school and the first, second, and third graders. The high schoolers are mentoring their peers as well as teaching the first, second, and third graders. And then we have master teachers who are supporting and providing coaching and mentoring to everybody. And so it's very intergenerational, very communal. And, you mentioned the Musasa, the school I went to. That was a year-round, full-time school. That was our K to 6, pre-K to 6th grade program. And our classes weren't named after colleges or numbers. Our classes, we had Frelimo, and we had SWAPO, and we had TANA, we had MPLA, and we had, all named after African liberation movement. Right?
Okay.
So that was the context of the 70s, understanding that our linkages to Africa was absolutely vital. And today in our Freedom School, we're doing the same kind of thing and really making sure that, that they understand what it means to be black, not only in America, but in the diaspora, and how, as a responsibility to their community, how do they lift as they climb, which we believe you got to be highly literate to do that. And that's why we really focus on literacy. A lot of students across the country, they lose, 2-3 months of education over the summer. And so we want to combat that as well as recruit more black teachers as through this apprentice program model.
Alhamdulillah. How the heck have you managed to convince these people at 440 North Broad and all of these white educators that independent black schools are a necessary part of the Philadelphia educational landscape? I mean, this is phenomenal.
Well, would you say convince people? I don't know if I've convinced anybody to be.
Well,
I think, part of our work is that to state what we believe our community is asking for, what they're demanding, what they've historically done, what has led to success of black children. And so it's like, yeah, definitely there's some support at 440, and I'm grateful for, there are folks in, sometimes people look at the district and just like, oh, the district is this, the district is that. Inside of any bureaucracy, there are some folks in there who are brilliant, who are working hard, who are trying. And, but it's like, it's hard, man. It is hard to move the Titanic in different ways. But I think I've been convinced, because it's not new, right? Like this idea of independent black schools is not new. What we're seeing in Philadelphia and across the country is that they're being shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Past several, like, for example, charters that have been started by black people, led by black people, have been shut down.
Right, right.
And that's a problem, but also, I've also had conversations with our black leadership in our schools, our education leaders, like, there's no reason why they shouldn't be a united front.
Mm-hmm.
They're still operating as individuals, like they don't know how this society, this system will crush independent, black folks who are independent but not united.
Right.
You can have your independence, but there has to be like a solidarity in the struggle to make sure that you're helping each other, watching each other's back, being as effective and efficient as possible. And so that's my hope and dream, that we see our independent institutions, even as they maintain their individual identities, that they have a rock solid, ironclad system of support and unification. And whether it's operations, whether it's choosing some of the curricula, whether it's hiring practice, whatever it is, there's some kind of unity that has to happen. Our libraries are littered with books that talk about what happens when we don't have this unified force.
Mm-hmm.
We get picked off one by one, and we're seeing that with independent black schools.
Right, right. The reality of the matter is that although Sharif El-Mekki has been recognized at the school board, independent black charter schools have been picked on, overly investigated, highly scrutinized, and many of them, if you look at the onset of the first group of black charter schools, many of them have been shut down. And they have been challenged by their pundits for years, and they've been punished. Many of them have been punished. And so, yeah, it is very important. I guess what I was alluding to is that the person, Sharif El-Mekki, carries a lot of weight in what he says and how he moves within that movement. That at 440 you are recognized within the master school system. You are recognized and appreciated. I mean, you're kind of like building a name for yourself, like the Black Apollo of educators. What's
the Black Apollo? What does that mean?
Well,
what is that?
Well, a famous biologist by the name of Ernest Everett Just was once called, or is called, the Black Apollo of biology, of science.
Oh.
You see the connection I'm making there?
Look at you. Cool.
So,
all right, well,
I mean, you're recognized.
That predates, of course, as a kid of the 70s, 80s, I'm thinking, you're talking about like Creed, Apollo Creed. Context is everything, but Dr. Just predates all of that. So.
Yes, Dr. Just does.
But, I think it's important to remember, like, yes, but, my mom is also, has been a teacher in the district, right? And so, some of that comes from her name, some of that comes from her teacher, my teacher, some of the, like, we stand on shoulders. Like, students are known by their teachers are known by their students, schools are known by their students, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, some of that is just the people who I've had the pleasure and honor of being around have been amazing. The teams that I've got to work on, whether it was at Turner, whether it was at Shaw or Shoemaker, they've been, like, just so dope, so committed, so dedicated that, sometimes, the face of something ends up getting some of the shine. And quite often, honestly, more than they should. For every award that I receive, like, I always walk into there thinking, like, this is really on behalf of the community I serve. Like, they're the ones that's doing amazing work. But I absolutely try to use whatever platform I have to elevate and amplify, the idea of black liberation and the educational justice that our our families and communities have been fighting for from day one.
Mm-hmm. And you're also the recipient of the Black Muslim Psychology Conference Educators Award, right? You got to plug that.
Absolutely. Honored. Absolutely. So much of this is, and I shared this, when I was speaking in the accepting of the award, that this work is so, just challenging and difficult. And at times we have to remember that not only to look at healing as a thing for our youth, but also the people who are closest to serving them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just an important aspect of it. And so I think that, issues like Black Muslim Psychology Conference was really your wife that really helped me process some things a couple of years ago that was just struggling. They call vicarious trauma. After seeing how many of your children, your students who were killed, or in jail, or, just all the kind of things that happen to families. I was a social worker before I became a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing some of just the oppression and the generational impact that it has, it's a lot to take on sometimes, and that's where, I think Iman, comes in, and your community also, because without the community to heal you and help you heal, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and while you're talking about the mental health aspect of it, you convened a support group of Black male high school students to talk about their life journey and their experiences to the date that they were in high school. And what you heard or found out that many of them had been abused as children. And that would seem to be the common denominator. Is that the kind of vicarious trauma that you're talking about? And tell us a little bit about those students.
Yeah, so what we have are students, this is why when I kind of cringe a little bit when people just come into our communities and say, oh, we're going to teach your kids grit, and then they'll be successful. When it's just they got more grit in their fingernail than you have in your entire existence, right? The things that this society and racism and classism and other forms of oppression has pushed on them, they've had to navigate all of that, right? And they say that it's even more traumatic for us to just say, oh, America's a meritocracy and all you got to do is work hard, because at some point the children are going to realize, our youth are going to realize that that's a lie, that there's something called white privilege, something that's called racism that's going to impact their day-to-day existence, where they live, what generational wealth is passed down to them, what generational debt are passed down to them. All of that is tied to the same fundamental system.
Right.
So even that is traumatic. It's traumatic. And so, our youth, fortunately, they don't. We believed in as students, that we're raising students who are also leaders. And so this idea of lead and serve, we took very seriously, and our students and community took very seriously. And so even though they were going through things, as I mentioned earlier, that idea of lift as you climb, they took that seriously, and they wanted to support their peers who they knew were going through some things that they had experienced, and they wanted to kind of pull together this idea of beyond the trauma, what else happened? How do we help each other? How do we help each other heal? And there's a movement out there right now that our words heal, and what it is, Dr. John Rich and some professors at Drexel are looking at our communities have always been forced to heal through the trauma, right? During enslavement, you see your parents carried off, and and then that ties into mass incarceration and all of these things, and then underfunded schooling, all of this stuff. But some kind of way, our families and our communities have found ways, whether it's through prayer, through reading, through spirituality, through meditation, through walking or gardening, or through laughter, finding joy despite a system trying to kill you. That was also part of the healing process. And so the students just wanted to share that with their peers.
And so that was really well ahead of any type of mental health curve that I've heard of. That approach is kind of revolutionary and unheard of. Is that part of the Freedom School experience or curriculum, dealing with not just trauma, but Black trauma?
Yeah, I think it is a part of that, and I think it's part of our communities as a whole. Freedom School allows you to synthesize a lot of the practices and put it under one roof and engage communities in a systemic way. And like these are things that are in our community. You can go to many communities and find someone in a masajid, someone in some other faith-based institution, someone in a rec center trying to do that same thing. What we're just trying to do as a freedom school is organize it in a way that is the youth, is intergenerational, carries it on, in mass.
Now, tell us, who are some of your most endeared Muslim scholars and teachers and leaders that you've learned from, you've looked up to throughout the years, aside from mom and dad and your family?
Yeah, well, I mean, outside of my family, but I do have to, in addition to my parents, have to shout out Sister Shakur Abdul Samad. She just recently returned to Allah. But, most of my summers as a child, I spent with her, whether she was in Baltimore or whether when she was living in Tehran, Iran, like spending time with her and her just deep understanding of Islam and how to apply it practically to today's world was just something that I've always needed in growing up, and it was just really profound, impactful. And I think, and obviously the brothers, Anwar and Anis Muhaymin, I've deep admiration and respect for, and just, I think around the same time we were going to Iran, they were going to Saudi Arabia, and so, just watching them grow and develop. There's just so many. There's so many. I've had, some of my favorite teachers were growing up in Iran. I had an opportunity. I went to 3 different schools while I was there. I went to an Iraqi school. I went to a regular traditional Iranian school, but I also went to the Hausa. And having the opportunity just to be around, scholars from, all around the world. When I say the Hausa, it wasn't just scholars from Iran there. There were scholars from all over Africa and, Guyana and South America, other parts of South America. And it was just amazing to be around, all of these people. But they all had just this collective, just impact and understanding of what it means to be a servant of our Lord and in service to his creation.
Alhamdulillah. We have a caller in South Philly on line 1. Diane, are you still there?
Yes, I am. I'm enjoying the conversation. Oh, goodness. A wonderful conversation about education. Hi, how are you? I want to commend you for all the great work that you have done and still is doing. And the Freedom School, you're welcome. I always loved the Freedom School and a Black Independent School because my children have 4, but 3 of them went to an independent black school. And all those children that went to 90% of those children that went to that school did very well. They knew who they are. And my children's best teachers was Muslim. I'm a Christian, but my children's best teachers was Muslim. And we have, I don't know if you know her name is Nasura Marcia Butler. Oh, she's the best teacher I've ever seen in my life. Nice. Those children just like they're her children. And it makes it different when you show African-American children love, because you don't know what they're going, through in their homes or whatever, but they are some good schools. And I recommend anyone that's sending their kids to a freedom school. Like you say, independent schools are closing up, but I think it's because we as the parents is not supporting it like we supposed to, because we fuss about education, but we don't put up the money like we should. And sacrifice. It wasn't hard. It wasn't easy for me and my husband. We sacrificed. I went years without buying clothes and doing my hair and all, and not buying a car and all that stuff to sacrifice, for our children's education. But thank God they're all doing well because of independent black schools.
Yeah, I feel you. And I just want to, I think our parents, they sacrifice a lot, but I think their sacrifices are so spread out across so many different domains that it's harder sometimes for people to just pick up on these are all the sacrifices. But if you read any, I was reading a story today in the New Republic about the cost of housing, for example, and how this woman, even though she had a full-time job that was minimum wage, she was homeless because the gentrification caused the landlord just to say, hey, I'm jacking these prices up, or I'm selling it, or whatever. So despite that she had all that, she was homeless, you know. And what she said was like, I graduated from high school in this city. It was in Atlanta, right outside of Atlanta, Peoplestown, a suburb of Atlanta. And she said, you know what? Despite the fact that you say, oh, you got to graduate high school, you got to do everything right, you got to stay out of trouble, you know, she still ends up homeless. And so I think, you know, we can't separate the oppression from the education. Like, that's all embedded in everything, you know, every aspect of it. And so just to read her, you know, her plight, and which, you know, parallels a lot. You know, we know Philadelphia, right?
Right. One of the most
city in the country, right? And so that we can't, that touches schools, you know, and we shouldn't have, you know, but I think sometimes people are, you know, there was a time when our families were, we'd say, hey, we can only afford one of y'all to go to school, so just one out of the family's going to go. And then people saw that like, oh, what's sacrifice? But we shouldn't have to do that kind of sacrifice, because other people are not sacrificing anything and moving ahead at lightning speed. And so we're just demanding justice. We're just demanding, you know, educated people in charge, the politicians, the policymakers, just be just. And as the sister just said, you know, like having folks care about these children as if they were their own.
Yeah, the disparity in what a child in Philadelphia gets in terms of education when you go right across the street in City Line Avenue into Lower Marion High School, Lower Marion School District, it's almost double that. And yet, you know, schools are funded on tax basis, and I think that's part of the problem, part of the issue, is that the property taxes have a lot to do with how we're going to fund our schools. Now, your group is hosting
property taxes and racism.
And race, yeah, you can't. Well, property taxes in rich white neighborhoods.
Yeah, exactly. Call it out.
Yeah.
Let it be straight. Make it plain.
Make it plain.
You know?
Now, your group is hosting a professional development workshop series this Wednesday at the Mary McLeod Bethune School. Tell us why this workshop is so diametrically different than traditional professional development workshops.
Yeah, so I mean, I think when you look at Pennsylvania, 96% of the teachers are white, which means that bleeds into the leadership, that bleeds into the thinking of how education is done. And so when we've just surveyed folks over the past years, as far as like, hey, what do you need support in? What are you struggling with? What ends up pushing you out of, you know, making you change your mind about leaving the classroom, either voluntarily or involuntarily? We try to use that as the basis for our professional development theory. So we believe, you know, skill, will, and mindset. These are the three things that make you an effective teacher or not. These are the three things that our black children need people to be experts at, as far as like how they work with our youth. And so what we're doing is really around it: skill, will, and mindset. And we're bringing a black liberatory stance, liberating education as the you know, kind of framework. And so I think we're just doing it from like black children, and particularly the history of black teachers. What made black teachers effective in the past? We can draw on those same lessons.
Yeah, your first workshop was entitled How to Develop, Foster, and Maintain Relationships with Black and Brown Students. Do you want to build deeper relationships with your students? Are you looking for more concrete ways to communicate with your scholars than that you say you love them? I mean, this is really a core competency that you're delivering to instructors that are outside of the cultural world and realm where their students come from.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I want to, you know, this is black space. I'm going to call this out. Like, it's not just white teachers who, you know, need this. There is a classism issue that sometimes we face with, you know, black educators teaching poor black children, right? And it's almost, you know, if you think about Bill Cosby's cornbread speech, you know, we have teachers standing in front of classrooms giving a similar speech. Lift yourself up, you know, like ignore everything else, like none of that matters. Racism doesn't really exist in this context, you know, all of those things. And so you can have anti-blackness permeate our school system.
What the Republicans call rugged individualism.
Yeah.
You know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you ain't got no boots.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is they never have. You know, they've always received grants, but told everybody else to. They told black and brown people to pull themselves up. But they always got land grants. They had the GI Bill. They got, the whole system was built so that they didn't have to pull themselves up.
Right.
The whole system that was built for them and to support them. When you look at things like redlining and you look at favorable loans and you look at safe neighborhoods with all the resources, and you can still see it, right?
Right.
You can go to parts of the Northeast, their rec centers don't look like the rec center across from Shoemaker.
No.
Right? And so all of that, but then they turn around and tell other people that they've had their foot on their neck to say, hey, pull yourself up.
Yeah.
Your foot is on my neck. Bro.
When they've been the beneficiaries of all the resources.
Exactly. So, they like to make it seem like they're not the, Ronald Reagan, when he was calling people welfare queen, he should have been talking about his mama, And so, all of that is still very, very relevant. So what we tried to do, particularly that first one, people a lot of times say they understand why relationships are important, but then we saw teachers who weren't really teaching the first month and saying, well, I'm trying to build relationships. You can have rigorous instruction and build relationships at the same time. You don't have to sacrifice one for the other. You can love kids and have high expectations. That's what black parenting is.
Right.
It's having high expectations and a lot of love and support. So you can do that in the classroom. So being a teacher is parenting.
So the Philadelphia school district is 96% white in terms of its...
Well, the state.
The state, okay.
Yeah.
In terms of its core. While the Freedom Schools were 98% of their instructors were black, high school college students, many of them coming from HBCUs. So is it your goal to achieve those numbers again? And if so, is that even legally possible?
Yeah, so, we have one, yes, you can't discriminate, but you can definitely, particularly when it's underserved communities, and neighborhoods and people. There's research around the impact that black teachers can have on black students. Johns Hopkins University, their university, we always knew this in our community, but their university said that, after this longitudinal research, said that, black children are almost 39%, almost 40% less likely to drop out of high school if they have a single black teacher. Just one. Imagine if that single black teacher is effective. Imagine if instead of one, it's 3 or 4. When you look
so does that mean over the course of their educational career? Or?
That child could have that teacher in 3rd grade and still has a huge impact on that kid's trajectory.
Wow,
that's one person.
That's an amazing.
Imagine if that's multiplied. Yeah,
that's an amazing data point.
We all, just about there are tons of people who can usually point to a single teacher that made all the world a difference. And then some of us are so blessed that we have multiples. I can't name one teacher that I had that had a profound impact on me. Right? Some of them are still around. Like Brother Luke Mackey, that was my music teacher. Sister Amber Hook, that was my science teacher. Mama Shakura, who I just mentioned, she was my pre-K teacher. Right? Like Baba Changa and Mama Fasaha and Mama Renee and Mama Linda and Baba Jehudi. I can go on and on and on about the teachers that I had directly that had this profound impact on me. And I'm just hoping to be able to do a quarter, a tenth of what they were able to do in their lifetimes and in their careers. I would consider myself, beyond blessed to be able to do that.
You're not a product of an HBCU.
First of all, whoa. Time out.
I'm trying to preface a question, brother.
But let me. Your question needs some recalibrating.
You sound you sound like T.I. when he was jumping on that woman. What was her name?
Well, I didn't see T.I.'s piece yet, but you talking about that panel?
Yeah, that panel where he jumped on her and he said, well, your question was wrong because you started off with some bull hockey from the beginning.
Well, I ain't going to go that far. You my elder. I love you. And it was, no. So I would never go that far. But no, you know what? I went to graduate school and I got my teacher certification, my principal certification from the Cheney University first.
Okay, then I never knew that. Man.
Yeah, bro.
We about to blow the horns up in here.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to teach you the sacred handshake.
Yeah. I think when I tell my man, we do this podcast, 8 Black Hands.
Mm-hmm.
We do the 8 Black Hands podcast. I always tell my fellow podcast member, Ray Ankrum, that when I was in college, when I was in undergrad, one frat was like trying to recruit me. Now I'm almost 50, and the same frat is like trying to make sure that I'm down. And I just, but I appreciate the love. You know what I mean?
I ain't even going to ask you what frat that might be. But
they wear purple a lot.
They wear purple a lot?
Yeah, they wear a lot of purple.
All right, brother. You got that. So, what is your overall disposition or opinion of HBCUs? It seems like HBCUs are like on the major comeback. I think ESPN just had a major production at Dell State College, Delaware State University yesterday with Stephen A. Smith, and they had Battle of the Bands, and Stephen A. Smith is a product who's also wearing a dude that wears a lot of purple, who's a product of Winston-Salem. Back then, I think it was called Winston-Salem's Teachers College, but it's Winston-Salem University now. And so
he used to be a teacher at college too, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Right, and what's her name? Steph Curry just donated, I think, $40 million to Howard's golf program. And so,
that's interesting. Like, all right.
Yeah, that's that. Well, he did something.
It's his money.
It's his money, and he's an athlete, so he sees the importance of extracurricular activities at an HBCU school. My old college buddy, who's an Omega as well, his school, I think it's Frederick Douglass Charter School, if I'm not mistaken, in Atlanta, is the #1 golf school, high school in the state. They just knocked off one of the long time white high schools in the area, and it was very historic when they did it. So they was dancing on the field and whatnot. But the impact and the growth of HBCUs, even 45 is trying to get in on the act. Seems to be HBCUs at one time seem to be on the brink of extinction. Many of them have closed. Some of them are coming back. Morris Brown is still in, I think, coming out of Chapter 11 for years. They've been considering, and so now they have classes at Morris Brown in Atlanta. But what is your disposition on HBCUs and the role that it will play, that they can play for our community?
Look, I think HBCUs are absolutely vital for our community. They played a historic role, and they play a current one.
Mm-hmm.
This notion of a safe space, or a lot of times now I'm hearing safe space. They're talking about like white people, particularly in education, who don't want to be called out and they want to feel safe in professional development. I look at safe space for children and our youth. And HBCUs, our college students, they're our youth.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so, like, I firmly believe that they need that safe space to educate, and what I talked about before with the emotional, spiritual, etc., is absolutely crucial for our children, for our youth. And they've been neglected for a long time.
Yeah, and a lot of them were headed up by the Freedom Riders. Were students of HBCUs.
Exactly.
And now we see the growth and development of the HBCU Muslim Student Association. It's growing. They have their annual conference at Howard University. So I think you'd be a great speaker there too.
Look, they thank you. They I think HBCUs play an important role, and I really hope that that we get the success. I appreciate everything that folks like Michael Kort has been doing.
Mm-hmm.
Demand justice. Like people say, oh, he needs to get their stuff together. Yes, and do you know that the state has been underfunding them for
decades,
for generations,
probably right? Since the beginning. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think at some point we just have to recognize and hold people just firmly accountable for doing right. Like when we talk about education, we can't just stop at K-12. we have to look at K to 12 and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people call K-16 or whatever. And as far as I'm concerned, the first act of reparations needs to be free education, free quality, superb quality education for all black people. You know, you want to get 10 PhDs, it should be free. That's the first step of reparations. We ain't stopping there, but that should be just like the first step.
They're going to call you a socialist, bruh, in a minute.
Yeah, whatever.
but by the way, I support that. It's not a political show. Maybe we'll have a political show, but the ones who have my ear are the ones who are talking about free college tuition for our people, supporting HBCUs, and they know how we've been held back for so many years. So if that's a socialist, then maybe I'm one.
Yeah, I mean, but just like the college debt and all of that, and like all of that stuff plays a role. And if you were already talking about, we have, just the oppressive, not only wages, but generational wealth gaps and all of these kind of things. And then we're saying like, all right, and in order for you to move forward, you got to get a college degree and go in debt for 50, 60,
right.
70,000.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
well, it's more than that. It's generally starting at 100,000 and goes up to 150,000. When you're talking about the average tuition is 40,000 times 4, and then you've got books and so on and so forth. A lot of black people are coming out with insurmountable debt. And it just creates that vicious cycle of poverty, and it continues that you're just an educated poor person at that point.
Yeah. I mean, that's for real. I mean, and then you see, like, what was his name, Robert Smith, when he did the thing not only of paying off the Morehouse graduate loans, but now he's doubling down on
and paying the parents.
Exactly, right? Because it's a generational thing. Like, we should be doing things. Justice means that we're doing things that people can feel for generations.
Mm-hmm.
What I experience is going to impact my grandkids.
Right.
Whatever I experience.
So is that why you getting that Steph Curry?
Yeah. No, not at all. Like I don't mind. Like I'm not a golf fan. It was interesting, but like at some level, people just got to get in with it.
Well, he did a lot better than Dr. Dre, right? Dr. Dre gave $70 million to USC.
Yeah.
Like they needed it. I think they're like the 4th wealthiest institution in the world, educational institution in the world. And right down the street, is Compton, where he grew up, and that's who made him famous.
It's hard to understand, particularly from afar for a lot of folks, man. Like it's just I can't wrap my mind around a lot of the stuff that happens.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really follow the celebrities too much, and like it's mostly interested in like what we're doing.
Yeah, I think it was just it was so famous because it was such an insult.
No, it was crazy to me. Like that massive amount of money to this institution that if you look at their parity and their equity,
mm-hmm.
I doubt if you'll see, like, I wonder, like, what's their graduation rate for black children? How many black kids from Compton go there?
Go there, right.
Are the questions that first came up in my mind as
mm-hmm.
far as, like, what happened.
So he could have given a small percentage of that to EdFest, right? So tell us, what is EdFest? What's that all about?
Right. So, as you said, started the Fellowship Black Male Educators for Social Justice. We used to have these Black Male Educator convenings. We were able to hire a CEO and a team a while ago, and so they're having basically an education festival. And what we're really trying to do is like elevate the Black male experience and their voices and recruit current and aspiring Black male educators, but it's open to all. So, everyone who's interested in equity and justice, particularly around schools and those institutions that are adjacent to schools,
mm-hmm.
they are welcome. It's October 19th and the 20th at what used to be the Sheraton, the downtown Sheraton on North 17th Street. Now I think it's called Hotel 201 or something. But, yeah, if you look up www.nationalbmec, that stands for Black Male Educators Convening.com, www.nationalbmec.com. You'll find all the the information about this.
Yeah, they got e-tickets there. You can register. How much does it cost to register? I didn't even click the e-tickets yet.
Yeah, click it, bro. We'll see you there. We'll see you
Well,
there.
I plan.
Yusuf Salam is one of the.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited that there's this intersection of this Muslim brother, this Muslim educator, this this voice, voice of the oppressed that
right.
He's been really him and the other, exonerated 5 members.
Oh, they're all going to be there.
No, he's going to be there. No, I'm just saying. I'm just calling out like him not stopping with his oppression.
Right.
As a lever for to amplify the voices of the oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
And so he'll be one of our keynote speakers, and I'm really grateful for the brother to come back down.
Mm-hmm.
I met him, of course, at the Black Muslim Psychology Conference, which was an honor to be there and meet him there. And so I'm really excited that he's coming back to Philly.
A very powerful, insightful speaker. He is.
Yeah.
He has much to offer. Dr. Yusuf Salam. He has a lot to offer, particularly black male youth. His living experience, his narrative, his journey, it's phenomenal. He was on the Breakfast Club. Him and Corey King Wise. If you can catch that episode, I would think it was before the Emmys. They were up for like 16 Emmys. I think they got an Emmy for Best Wardrobe. The most watched Netflix ever. And,
oh wow! I did not know that.
And Game of Thrones just ran away with it. But this is why we're talking about inequality, right? So they got Best Wardrobe. So they give it to the black people for best dressed.
Typical, but
Yeah. And I thought that.
I hate that we have to make those kind of documentaries, and we have to.
Right. The young brother who played Corey did a phenomenal job. I just thought he was going to win the Emmy for that role, hands down. But I think a dragon or something off of. Won it. Before we
make believe is way more important than the pain and suffering of
Okay.
thousands.
So I got to make a couple of PSAs, and then we're going to come back to you with any closing comments that you would like to make. So, our resident genius, Sharif El-Mekki, please gather your thoughts, and we'll be right back to you. So, United Muslim Masjid is having its free 10-week course. Join us for I believe what will be our second installment or third installment next week. It's every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. The Principles of Understanding the Quran, Al-Qawaid, Al-Hisan, Part 2, conducted by Imam Hanif Faus, and that's from 6 to 7. And then from 7 to 8 p.m., The Belief in the Hereafter, Part 2 by Dr. Tahir Wyatt. You can go to the website, UMMOnline.org, and download the reading material in PDF form on the front page or the home page. United Muslim Masjid is located at 810 South 15th Street, Philadelphia, PA. These times are subject to salat time changes, but for now, that's what they are. Also, on Saturday, October the 12th, United Muslim Masjid will be conducting its first quarterly community outreach meeting. Everyone who considers themselves a member of United Muslim Masjid, we encourage you to come to United Muslim Masjid, 810 South 15th Street, to participate in our community meeting. We will be having these every quarter. This is the first one of its kind. We're going to be recruiting people for volunteers, going over the organizational structure. If you have a committee that you would like to join, or even a committee that you would like to propose, by all means, Saturday, October the 12th, at 11 a.m. at United Muslim Masjid, please come. So with that soon to be, you're going to get your own doctorate someday. They're going to give you. Maybe I'll ask them purple men to get you nominated for an honorary doctorate, or we can bring you down to Dillard, New Orleans, and get that for you. Do you have any closing comments for us before we go?
No, first of all, I appreciate, Word and Islam Today being, a platform for us and for our community, and so I'm just really grateful. As I travel the country, and I say, there's a black-owned radio station, people are just like, they still have those? are a little incredulous. I just want to end with, just thanking you for bringing me on and for the WRD family just for being a present. I'm a member, and so I just fully support, us, right? And so we got to continue to do that.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you for being a part of our show. You're definitely a part of our history and a part of our community. Inshallah, history will be kind to you if you don't mess it up yet. You know what I mean?
I mean, as I said, it's best to be in people's hearts and du'as. I ask that you keep me in both.
Alhamdulillah. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Thank you again for joining us on Islam Today. Stay tuned next for the Recovery Hour 101 with our brother Rick Ford. Assalamu alaikum.
If you're looking for a great paying part-time job with flexible hours, check out 2020 Census Jobs. You may have another job, or not. You may even be retired or looking for some extra income, but you can also help make sure that everyone gets counted. So apply today at 2020census.gov/jobs to help strengthen your community.
Word Show on the Go. Tell us where you'd like to see the rapping professor, Dr. Aaron Smith, bring the Word Show on the Go team next. Visit wordradio.com. Click the Word Show on the Go banner and let us know about your community event, big news in your community, or an issue you'd like to see addressed. You can also catch up on the latest episode of Word Show on the Go or binge watch previous episodes. It's Word Show on the Go with the rapping professor, Dr. Aaron Smith, exclusively on wordradio.com. Word Show on the Go is funded in part by the Facebook Journalism Project Community Network.
My dad came to live with us last month, and